My name is Jason Miller. I toil away as a laborer in a modest factory, lacking any noteworthy qualifications. Straight out of high school, I plunged into the workforce, compelled by financial constraints that rendered quitting an unattainable luxury. Despite the meager earnings, I trudged on, my wallet now holding only a lone $100 bill, scarcely sufficient for mid-month expenses. With around $500 resting in the bank, I reckoned I'd scrape by somehow. In the midst of my musings, a forlorn figure caught my attention. A disheveled girl clad in a high school uniform not familiar to our locale stood before me. Despite the chill in the air, she wore no coat, her knees marred by scrapes, and her attire in disarray. What's troubling her? My curiosity piqued. I halted my stride to observe her plight. Shouldn't she be heading home? Seated there at this hour, perhaps she's taken ill. Her attempts to warm her freezing fingers by rubbing them together did not escape my notice. Leaving her be risks her getting caught up in trouble. What's the best course here? Resolving to act, I ducked into a nearby cafe, procured some steaming beverages and donuts, and approached her. As I drew near, the girl tensed, a hint of fear flickering across her features. Good evening. No need to fear. I won't harm you. I noticed you seemed cold, and I thought it offered some warmth. Would you like this? I extended a freshly purchased cup of hot lemon tea. She tentatively accepted, pressing the warm cup to her cheek for comfort. Are you hungry? Hunger only worsens the cold. Here, would you care for a donut? Uncertain of her preferences, I selected one at random, wondering if she'd receive it. With a soft thank you, she accepted the offering. Aren't you heading home? She shook her head in response, but offered no explanation. Could she have fled her home, I pondered, wary of delving too deeply into her circumstances. Then, a gust of wind lifted her skirt, revealing a network of painful wounds on her legs. What happened? She hastily concealed her legs, but not before I caught sight of the injuries. Did someone hurt you? Were you attacked? Her demeanor stiffened, reluctant to divulge. All right, no need to talk if you don't wish to, but lingering here puts you at risk. How about heading home? In a barely audible voice, she murmured. No. I was planning to go to my dad's, but it's quite a distance away. Her father's place, so she's staying with her mother now. I couldn't fathom the complexity of her situation, sensing it wouldn't resolve easily. Have you tried calling your dad? Maybe he can come get you. I don't have the number. I don't even have a phone, she replied, surprising me with her lack of a cell phone in this day and age. Do you know the address? Can you show me where it is? I inquired, to which she nodded, producing a small piece of paper bearing an unfamiliar address. Is this where you're supposed to meet him? She confirmed with a nod. It seems quite a distance, it's getting late, I remarked, pulling out my smartphone to search the address. The result revealed Greenwood Group, a construction company. I could jot down the number for you to call tomorrow. This is the contact I found linked to that address. Give it a try, you might reach your dad. It seems he works for a construction company, I suggested optimistically. She brightened at the prospect. Okay, you should stay at a nearby hotel tonight. I'll arrange it for you. Can you manage on your own? She hesitated, admitting her lack of funds. Despite my own financial constraints, I still had a $100 bill tucked away. Perhaps it'll suffice for a night, I mused, reassuring her. Don't worry, I can cover it. A warm bath and a good night's rest will help. You can call your dad in the morning. But I can't repay you, she worriedly protested. Forget about it. Just focus on reuniting with your dad. I reassured her, leading the way to a nearby hotel where breakfast was included for $100. After arranging everything with the hotel staff, including permission for her to make a morning call, I bid her farewell. It felt gratifying to assist her despite my now empty wallet. A few days later, as I returned home, the factory manager summoned me. Smith, you wanted to see me. The summons from the manager marked a first for me in my tenure at the factory. With a nervous air, I stepped into his office. Clad in an expensive suit, a stark contrast to the modest setting of our workplace, he greeted me. It's Jason, right? Yes, sir, Jason Miller, I confirmed, my apprehension mounting. You won't need to come back here, he stated bluntly. I beg your pardon? What's the reason? I stammered, bewildered by the sudden dismissal. It means you're being terminated, he declared, his tone leaving no room for negotiation. I struggled to comprehend. Could you please explain? Have I committed an offense warranting termination? I can't recall any wrongdoing. We can't tolerate troublemakers like you in our establishment, he asserted. What exactly makes me a troublemaker? And are you connected with the mafia? I blurted out, my mind racing with confusion. What? Absolutely not. That's absurd, he denied vehemently. I offered you a job straight out of high school, and now you're implicated with the mafia. That's preposterous. I've never had any dealings with the mafia, nor have they approached me, I protested vehemently. Your protests don't change the fact that the mafia is inquiring about you. As a company, we can't afford such associations, he countered. I was never the company's first choice anyway. The previous owner used to say things like, as long as someone's motivated, even a high school graduate will do, he disclosed. That's news to me. His decision has put me in quite a predicament. Please, I assure you, I have no ties to the mafia, I pleaded desperately. I couldn't care less about your predicament. It's none of my concern, he retorted callously. Why not seek help from the mafia then? They might assist you, he suggested coldly. I swear I have no connections with them. There must be some misunderstanding. Please reconsider, I implored, grasping at any hope of retaining my job. The decision stands. We can't afford social liabilities in our small factory, and don't fabricate such tales next time you seek employment, he admonished sternly. I'm not fabricating anything. I've never associated with such individuals, I protested earnestly. Then were you running with a rough crowd in high school? Is that the kind of company you keep? He interrogated. That's impossible. Please, Mr. Smith, believe me, I pleaded, desperation creeping into my voice. Enough. Just leave. You'll be compensated for today, he dismissed me coldly, never darken our doors again. No. There must be some misunderstanding, I persisted, but my words fell on deaf ears. He regarded me with disdain, pointing toward the exit. Is that all you have to say? I've heard your side. Now go. I've work to attend to. With a heavy heart, I realized it was the end. In the office, I received a meager envelope, my final paycheck from the company. Were the 15 years of hard work really so inconsequential, reduced to this thin envelope? As I bid farewell to my colleagues, their expressions mirrored my disbelief. Why the sudden departure? It's absurd, they lamented, expressing regret at my forced exit. Yet, despite their sentiments, none dared confront the manager or challenge his decision, fearing they'd meet a similar fate. With a farewell and a wish for their well-being, I departed from the gates of the company I had faithfully served for 15 years. What am I to do now? Fired so abruptly, all I possess is this meager envelope. I must find another job swiftly before it dwindles away, I mused, my gaze fixed upon the ground. Suddenly, a black tire halted before me, prompting me to look up. It was a sleek luxury car obstructing the way. Naturally, I thought, must be some high-ranking individual here for the factory. They ought to hasten their entrance. The driver, clad in gloves, emerged from the vehicle and courteously opened the rear door. Stepping out was a man in an exquisite suit accompanied by a girl. He inquired of her, "Is this the gentleman?" Her nod confirmed it. Recognizing her from our earlier encounter, I exclaimed, "Ah, you're the girl from before. So you've reunited with your father? That's wonderful. I'm truly glad for you." Forgetting my recent misfortunes, I addressed her warmly. She beamed and embraced me. "Thanks to you, my daughter is safely in my arms. I owe you my gratitude." "You're her father?" Excellent news. I was concerned for her but had no means to contact you thereafter. By the way, you're leaving the premises quite early. Any pressing engagements? I inquired, attempting a forced laugh. It wouldn't do to divulge my recent dismissal to someone I'd just met, especially someone likely of high rank, evident from the lavish car and attire. It felt improper to engage with such a figure. If you're not pressed for time, I'd like to express my appreciation. It's nearly lunchtime. Would you care to join me? He offered graciously. Oh no. That's too generous. I couldn't possibly accept gratitude for simply doing what was right, I demurred. Come now. Don't be so modest. Should you have other commitments, I won't insist. But if you're available, please allow me to treat you. A mere thank you hardly suffices for saving my daughter, he insisted earnestly, a sense of sincerity in his words. Initially, I hesitated, feeling that as a recently dismissed individual, I had no pressing engagements. Besides, job hunting in my current downtrodden state seemed futile. However, considering my circumstances, I relented, saying, "If you insist, then I'll accept your generous offer," and agreed to accompany them. Stepping into the car, I was whisked away to a posh restaurant. "Excuse me, I'm not exactly dressed for this," I remarked, gesturing to my work attire, hardly suitable for such an upscale establishment. Expecting a modest diner at best, I was taken aback by the opulence. Yet the man chuckled heartily, dismissing my concerns with, "Don't worry about it. Clothes don't dine." With his encouragement, I followed him, noting the lack of fuss from the hostess, who greeted me with a smile, indicating he was a regular. The ambience of the private room exuded luxury, albeit making me feel somewhat out of place. Despite my discomfort, as the conversation flowed and drinks were poured, I found myself gradually relaxing. The genuine smiles exchanged between father and daughter, coupled with the sumptuous fare, began to thaw my apprehension. It felt surreal, being amidst such extravagance as a high school graduate. Yet, with each sip and bite, I couldn't help but savor the moment, sensing it might be my first and last taste of such indulgence. Eventually, the man disclosed his identity. "I should have introduced myself earlier, but that's unlike me," he admitted, offering me a business card bearing the name B of Greenwood family. "Oh my," I thought, my mind jumping to conclusions. "I apologize," he interjected swiftly. "No need for apologies." "You're right," I replied, realizing my faux pas. "But you see, even a mafia member is a parent. Thanks to you, I'm reunited with my daughter." "I'm truly grateful," he confessed earnestly. "Oh, it was my pleasure," I replied sincerely, touched by his gratitude. "May I ask something?" "I've been curious about why she was there that day," I inquired. "That's because, you see, her mother and I divorced years ago. Shortly after she remarried, her new husband appeared to be the vice president of a small factory. However, after her passing, his new wife took over the household. Coincidentally, around the same time, the factory's president, who had always been kind to my daughter, also passed away. The vice president then ascended to the presidency. Since then, my daughter has been treated as an inconvenience. Could that be why her legs were injured?" I wondered aloud. "Yes, precisely. She was injured in places not easily visible, especially on her back. It was dreadful. I can't even begin to imagine the pain she endured. Before her mother's passing, she received an amulet, and was instructed that if she ever needed help, she should open it. That was the note left for her. Unfortunately, not jotting down a phone number was an oversight. She was desperately trying to locate me. However, despite her efforts, the distance was too great for a high school student to traverse alone. By the time you found her, her wallet was empty. If it hadn't been for your intervention, she might have succumbed to the cold." "That was the situation," he explained. I suspected there must have been extenuating circumstances. As for her mother's new husband, I can't forgive him for subjecting her to such hardship. "I swore to seek retribution," he declared. "Oh, it doesn't sound quite fitting for someone associated with the mafia to express such sentiments, does it?" I remarked. "I understand your sentiment. Thank you," he responded. "What about you? Leaving work at such an hour, something must have happened, right?" he inquired. "It may sound peculiar to share this with someone I've just met, particularly someone of your stature, but I was actually terminated from my job just now," I confessed. "Fired? Why?" he inquired, visibly taken aback. "Apparently, I was unjustly accused of having ties to unsavory elements. I have no clue how that came about. This morning, out of nowhere, I was accused and promptly dismissed," I explained. "Hold on a moment," he said, beckoning over an executive nearby. After a brief exchange in hushed tones, he turned back to me, visibly perturbed. "Idiots," he exclaimed before addressing me directly. "I must apologize profusely. It appears that my colleague is at fault here," he said apologetically. "Oh, what do you mean?" I asked, bewildered by the sudden turn of events. "I wanted to express my gratitude, so I had my associates look into your situation. They found out where you were employed but wanted to confirm it firsthand. It seems they mentioned our organization's name during the inquiry, which likely led to the misunderstanding about me being associated with antisocial forces. It was a complete setup, and for that, I sincerely apologize. Allow me to rectify this. I'll speak with your manager tomorrow, clarify the misunderstanding, and ensure everything is resolved," he reassured. "No, I'm fine," I replied hesitantly. "You shouldn't be fine. You must be facing difficulties, right?" he persisted. "Well, it wouldn't be truthful to say I'm not troubled. However, returning to work under such management would only repeat the same cycle. I refuse to work under someone who lacks trust in their employees, I asserted. I understand. Do you have another job lined up? He inquired. Unfortunately, no. Truth be told, I have nothing at the moment. If I don't secure something by month's end, I'll be in dire straits. But I'm resolved to stand firm, I confessed. Good for you. In that case, how about I introduce you to a company owned by a friend of mine? They have no connections to the mafia. I believe my friend would appreciate your skills, he proposed. No, thank you. I appreciate the offer and I'm tempted to accept. However, should I truly consider it? Even if they claim no affiliation with the mafia, can I trust that completely? I pondered aloud. I see. Well, should you ever find yourself in need, don't hesitate to reach out. I'm here to assist, he offered with a chuckle. About a month later, finding myself in dire straits, I reached out for his help. Despite numerous job interviews, I remained unemployed. Faced with the prospect of settling for part-time work, he invited me for a drink, ensuring it was on him. It was a humble gesture considering his position, and I accepted, surprised to find such generosity from a mafia member. If it's a bar, you're not asking for much, huh? He quipped. That's not fair. I'm treating you, and you prefer a bar over a fancy restaurant, I retorted. Well, I've never been one for fancy restaurants. They make me feel uneasy. I'm more at ease in a casual bar, I confessed. I see. I suppose I didn't consider that, he conceded. With a beer mug in hand, I replied, I'll take this, thanks, and took a swig. So, have you had any luck finding the job? He inquired. Not yet, unfortunately. Being a high school graduate, it's proving to be quite challenging. I've applied to numerous companies, but no success, I admitted. That's a shame. Say, would you mind assisting me with something? He asked, causing my heart to skip a beat. Being asked for help by someone associated with the mafia didn't bode well in my mind. However, he continued, I understand if you're hesitant, but rest assured, my request is not what you might expect. Even though I'm affiliated with the mafia, not all our endeavors are nefarious. I merely seek justice for my daughter, he divulged. Justice, yes. Over the past month, I've been investigating the individual responsible for my daughter's suffering. It transpired to be the manager of the company you were employed at. He operates as the factory's manager. Unlike his predecessor who wore work attire and engaged with the workforce, this man dons expensive suits and avoids the factory floor entirely. He resides in a luxurious neighborhood over an hour's drive away, which explains his habitual tardiness. Absolutely, a classic example of executive negligence. My daughter practically served as his maid, and it appears she wasn't even adequately nourished. Reduced to tears while eating a single bagel. Unbelievable, isn't it? Yes, unfortunately, it's true. How could he treat my daughter in such a despicable manner? He muttered, frustration evident as he finished his beer. Hence, my desire for retribution for my daughter. But when we talk about revenge, it's not about resorting to anything unlawful. I refuse to risk losing precious time with my daughter by ending up behind bars over a scoundrel like him. So we're approaching this legally. Legally? Yes, hence why I've established a company. What sort of company? It operates within the same industry, but truthfully, it's rather inconsequential. What I'm truly after is seizing control of that company. Seizing control? Yes, precisely. We'll orchestrate a takeover and oust the manager. I possess substantial incriminating evidence against him. He's drowning in personal debt, largely accrued from gambling and the like, and now he's funneling the company's profits to settle his debts. Is that so? Yes. That's precisely why the employees' wages have plummeted. They've seen a significant decline since the passing of the previous manager. That's correct. Our wages took a nosedive following the demise of the previous manager. It's clear now. We were all pawns in his scheme, toiling for his benefit. Hence, my resolve to oust him from the company and transform it into a place where employees are rightfully compensated. What fate awaits the manager once he's ousted? Well, I reckon he'll be in quite a bind. Additionally, it appears his wife married him solely for his wealth. If she discovers he's no longer in power, she'll likely abandon him. Moreover, socially, I'll ensure he's ostracized, making it challenging for him to secure employment elsewhere. You could do that? Well, I am the boss of Greenwood after all. Manipulating such situations comes naturally to me. I understand. I sought your assistance because you too fell victim to his actions. I presumed you might seek retribution as well. Indeed, once the employees learn the truth, they'll likely share our sentiments. Most likely. If things proceed as intended, I aim to expand the factory further, and I envision you as a manager. Me, a manager? That seems far-fetched. Nonsense. In the past, high school graduates ascending to managerial roles wasn't uncommon. If formal education is lacking, one compensates with experience and diligence. Don't you feel capable? If you're confident in me, I'll give it my best shot. Excellent. Then tonight, we'll toast to the future of our new venture. Thus, unexpectedly, I became entwined in the takeover scheme of the factory that had previously let me go. A month later, after thorough investigation, we devised a plan to inflict significant financial harm on the factory through our takeover. Well, Mr. Smith. Long time no see. Oh, we have a prior acquaintance? It's possible you wouldn't recall a former high school graduate employee. Ah, Jason Miller. You were terminated under the mistaken assumption of having ties to the mafia. Well, that's not entirely accurate. No worries. It led me to secure a favorable position at my current company. I harbor no ill will. Instead, I come bearing a lucrative proposal. A proposition? You mean you wish to engage in business with us? Precisely. Your products boast exceptional quality, a fact I can attest to from my years of service here. Hence, I propose a contract valued at $5 million. $5 million? Indeed. I request the delivery of goods totaling that amount within a fortnight. Upon confirmation of delivery, the $5 million will be transferred. That's quite generous. So shall we proceed with this contract? Of course, I said as I placed the contract on the table, urging him to sign without perusing its contents. He was elated by the mention of $5 million and hastily affixed his signature. Foreseeing the manager's lack of attention to detail, I had expected as much. Yet it still amused me to witness the behavior of a company manager. With the contract signed, he spurred the employees into action, driving them relentlessly and demanding they work without respite. Production surged forward, but when it came time for delivery, complications arose. No delivery company would take on the task, likely due to interference from the Greenwood. In desperation, Smith himself sought out carriers, only for a truck from the Greenwood to conveniently appear. Despite loading the goods and dispatching numerous trucks, delays ensued, with vehicles encountering various issues along the journey. Ultimately, the deadline passed without the goods arriving. I promptly contacted Smith and returned to the factory. The goods didn't arrive by the deadline. Our company has incurred significant losses, I informed him. This is a breach of contract, he protested. No, we fulfilled our end of the agreement. It clearly stipulates in the contract that failure to deliver results in a $5 million payment, I countered. That's preposterous. I wasn't aware of such a clause, he retorted. Mr. Smith, whether you were aware or not, it's clearly outlined here. Claiming ignorance won't absolve you of your responsibilities, I asserted. Impossible. My company doesn't possess $5 million. Then it appears we'll have to acquire this factory. This factory, it's clearly stated here. Even if the mishap occurred due to the carrier's fault, your company assumes full liability. You've signed the agreement, haven't you? Hold on, this is outrageous. Without the factory, it will spell disaster. Indeed, it appears so. No longer will anyone be able to settle the personal debts you've accumulated. How did you become aware of that? That's not all. It's likely your wife will depart as well. It seems she wedded you solely for your wealth. You were aware of all this and orchestrated this contract, he accused. It's not just me who harbors resentment towards you. That's why this course of action was taken. Now, the factory belongs to our company. Pack your belongings and depart, I instructed sternly. Unbelievable. With all my debts, he lamented, sinking into despair. Following his expulsion from the factory, he sought solace with his wife, imploring her assistance in clearing his debts. However, accustomed to a life of luxury, she chose to sever ties with the now destitute manager. Slamming divorce papers onto the table, she callously demanded compensation, further plunging him into insurmountable debt, leaving him in a state of profound suffering. Upon reporting the entire ordeal to the boss, he expressed satisfaction and commended my actions. Henceforth, he'll find no employment with any reputable company. He'll come to truly understand the consequences of betrayal. Yes, may he face torment in the depths of hell, I concurred. Presently you're the manager of this factory. Will you endeavor to expand the company for the benefit of the employees and yourself? My colleague inquired. No, that's not my primary motivation. I didn't undertake this for personal gain. I did it for the sake of my daughter, you, and all the hardworking employees at this factory. It's imperative that we prioritize the happiness of our employees, I clarified. Understood, sir. We'll ensure the employees' well-being, they affirmed. With that resolved, I resumed my role as the factory's manager, greeted warmly by my former colleagues. Thank you all for remaining steadfast. Together, let's strive to enhance the factory and ensure every employee receives fair compensation. This factory belongs to all of us, I proclaimed during my inaugural address. My colleagues erupted into cheers, welcoming me back wholeheartedly.